This video is going to show you how to repair an air pump for a koi pond. There's really no easy way to measure the performance of the air pump without some expensive equipment, but most people can tell when the air pump is not working properly because they just don't see as much air going into the pond from the aerator. So this is a pretty high quality air pump. I actually don't know what the brand name is, but given the source I got it from, I know that it's probably pretty high quality because this guy always spent a lot of money on his koi pond. So I have already rebuilt this pump, but I'm going to take it apart and show you what I did and how I did it so that you can do it on your own. All the pumps that I've rebuilt in the past basically operate the same way. So the first thing we need to do is to take apart the housing so we can access the pump. So the first thing you do is take off the top. Sometimes there's a screw, you need a screwdriver to take it off. This one just has a knob. Inside the top there's actually a filter material. That's usually pretty dirty, and just pull it out and wash it with a little bit of soap and water and then set it aside and let it dry. Sometimes they have a ring, a rubber gasket that seals the air going through the filter material, but not always. This one is actually broken in several places, but I've just chosen to leave it alone, and hopefully it'll operate fine. Next thing you need to do is to turn the pump over and take off 4 screws on the bottom, 1 in each corner. Okay, so I've taken the screws off. I'm just going to pull the cover off. Part of the cover has a little notch in the side of it that goes around this retaining ring for the electrical cord. We don't have to do anything with the electrical cord. Just leave it. There's also, in this particular pump, there's also another filter, and it's worthwhile taking it off and cleaning it out the same way you did the other filter. Just a little bit of soap and water. Clean it out and then wring it out and then just let it sit. Okay, so this is the pump unit itself, and the part that needs to be replaced are these 2 pieces right here. I'm going to pull one of these apart so you can see what's actually inside of it. It consists of this outer unit, and you'll see there's another piece behind it. It's connected to the outflow area by way of this hose. There's a little retaining clip here that keeps it tight on that outlet. Sorry for the camera shake. And I'm going to shut the camera off, and I'm going to pull these 4 screws out, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've taken the screws out. I'm going to pull this outer unit off here, and there's also an inner unit right here. This inner unit, in order to take it out, you have to take off this nut right here, and that's attached to an internal part of the pump that allows it to move this in and out. Now that's what actually causes the pump to create air pressure. The air comes out from this diaphragm and gets captured by this whole unit right here, and the air comes out this little pipe. It goes down inside of a cavity underneath the pump and then comes out the hose over here. So it's pretty straightforward. You pull this nut off. This comes off a threaded rod. You just pull that off and you're going to replace that unit. It's interesting when you look at the old ones that I pulled off, which I've got right here, someplace, right here. They actually look pretty similar, and if you look on the inside, they don't really look very different, so it's not clear that anything here is worn out. The diaphragm actually looks pretty good, so again, it's not really clear exactly what actually wears out, but I think the rubber just decays. It probably splits in some places, and there's also inside of this unit, there's something called a check valve right here, and that rubber starts to wear out and dry out, and it starts leaking air. So air pressure that's inside the chamber in the bottom of the pump actually starts coming back out. So you'd use a small wrench. In this case, it's a 5.5 millimeter wrench. You'd pull that off, you'd pull it completely off, put the other one on, and you're ready to go. One of the things you should really do before you actually take it apart and then reassemble it is to clean the whole thing up. I used a rag, a toothbrush, and some paper towels to clean the whole thing up. It was really dirty on the inside. It doesn't really hurt very much, but you really want to try and keep these clean, or at least clean it once you take it all apart. It doesn't take very much effort. So I'm not going to pull this diaphragm off. Again, you just pull this nut off, pull that diaphragm off the threaded rod, and then put the new one back on. And you can see this is identical to the one that was the old one, which I'm holding in my hand. There's also another diaphragm on the other side, and you do exactly the same thing. You pull off this retaining ring right here off the hose, take off the 4 screws and pull it apart. And then there's also another diaphragm just on the inside of this. I was able to also pull out this piece of nylon material. It's got magnets on it. It just pulls right out. It'll be a little stiff to get out because it's got magnets in it and it gets attracted naturally to this transformer. Don't worry about that. If you can pull it out, again, just clean it up. That's the only moving part in the entire pump. So I'm now going to put this back together. Put this back on. I put in the 4 screws. Let me do that and I'll turn the video back on once I get the screws in. So I've got this handy little electric screwdriver that I can use to loosen and take off the screws. Usually when I put the screws in, I usually tighten it just close so it makes sure that it grabs and everything's in place, but I don't tighten it so tight that I strip out the threads. I like to do the last bit of tightening by hand. So I'm going to do that on these other screws. I do that just to make sure I don't strip anything. This little screwdriver I have doesn't have a lot of torque. I bought it specifically for that because it's unlikely to actually strip any screws. And that's it. You do both sides. You put this retaining ring back on. Again, I won't do the other side because it's identical. I put this filter material on around it. And now it's all ready to be sealed up. So I'll put the cover back on. I'll turn this around and show you how to get that cover around the electrical connector. Inside of the cover, you can see there's a little bit of a slot right here, and that slot goes over this grommet right here. By the way, when I took the cover off the first time, I actually had to use a flat-bladed screwdriver just to break the seal between the rubber grommet right here that goes around the entire unit and the case. It's that rubber seal actually that makes the pump watertight. So I'll turn this over. I'll put the 4 screws back in. So there's my handy little screwdriver. Just get it a little tight, not very much. I'll just go through with the hand screwdriver. Tighten them all up, not too tight. Notice that when I did this whole thing, I didn't have to touch anything that was electrical. Turn it back over. And again, this whole top of the pump is really dirty. I just cleaned it up with some soap and water and a toothbrush, especially in this area right here. You can see there's kind of a skeleton frame. And that filter material on the inside of the top actually interfaces to that skeleton material. You put that on. You have to make sure it fits in there properly. You'll get a sense of that. It's pretty straightforward. Tighten that up, and I'm done. Didn't take very long. That's it. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. Talk to you later. I just wanted to add a couple more notes. First, the repair kit is unique to each pump. I don't know what the brand name of this pump is, but the guy who gave it to me told me that I could get a repair kit over at Champion Koi. I brought the whole pump over there, and Tom or one of the other guys behind the counter knew exactly what I needed. They gave it to me. It was $45. $45 seems like a lot of money, but this was probably a $300 air pump, so $45 is relatively cheap.